Welcome back everyone. We are now at the coloring stage and I'm going to try my best to guide you through it as well as possible. So first and foremost, there are many ways of coloring things, okay? There's many different styles and ways of approaching coloring. What we're going to be focusing on today is quite a simple approach, more of a standard one that is very much applied within the industry. And I'm going to try to keep it, as standard and simple as possible. Right, so first and foremost, for all panels, I've just done some structuring, so cleaning up. I've added all my inking and penciling layers to a line art folder, a support folder for anything that, any layer that helped me with support, like perspective lines or 3D drawing, like reference material and stuff. And then the colors are basically, I've created a layer for flats. Now I'm quickly going to get into flats in a second. And obviously the frame background, which was already there. Okay, now, first of all, we're going to take the color wheel out of here and make it much bigger because we're going to be using this quite a lot. Well, maybe not too big, but like so. And another thing that we're going to use a lot is our palettes. Okay, so now you have your default color set. There are a couple of other ones. What I'm going to do for this project is I'm going to create a new. So you're going to add color set, you do add new settings, right? And just call it, let's see, CSP demo. Okay. Right, so right now it's all transparent. It's all empty, it's all transparent. So how does it work? You select a color, for example, or any color here. Yeah, now basically you can do this for coloring your thing. Let's use the right one straight away, and we're not wasting any time. Let's go for, let's color it a bit, maybe like this, for now. Maybe a little bit lighter. A bit more like that. Maybe, I don't know, I kind of like this. Right, so just for now, let's use this color, right? Now say you like the color and you want to add it here, then, you just add the color and there you go. Now it's added to your color palette, okay, that you can use later on again. This is how you keep adding colors that you will most likely be using down the line. Alright, so we've made our way to flatting. Flatting is the first stage of coloring, and it is a very important one. It is also the least creative process within comics. So it basically means that you're going to separate your colors. So for example, these pants are going to be one color, the vest is going to be another, his hair is going to be another, his fingertips, all that stuff. And you have to separate them. Now in order to do that, there are two ways of doing it, right? You can do what everyone does in Photoshop, or what the grand majority of people do in Photoshop, and that's with a lasso tool, right? So you just go in, and it's also the most precise way of working, but I'm going to show you something that Clip Studio Paint has that might speed up this process. So first I'm going to show you with the lasso tool. Alright, so with the lasso tool, okay, we can basically make selections, like for example, we can make a quick selection here and go around, something like this. Now I've got my selection, right? And then I press F for filling, and I just fill the section, okay? Now the reason why it's not filling the whole thing is because right now, that's another important thing, is that it is filling based on a reference. If you go to refer to only editing layer and you do this, it will fill your section that you have selected. So very important, there is a big difference, okay? There is refer other layers, refer other layers, or refer only to editing layer. If you're going to do the lasso method, use refer only to editing layer. If you're going to use the method that I just showed you, the other one, refer other layers, then basically what you can do is select individual sections, and then it will fill these sections based on the referral layer. So in case this the inking layer is what it's referring to. Okay, so important to know. Okay, and so that's basically your flats. Now, something that is also quite useful to know is for when using AstroPad, you can just take this menu right here, very useful, this menu. We're going to remove this, and then, for example, when you are doing your selections, right, let's say very quickly, I had to select this bit, right, and I couldn't select it for any reason whatsoever. I couldn't select it all the way. Okay, I only have a section selected. Just here to press your shift simultaneously, and then you can continue drawing. Now, considering I'm holding the camera with one hand, I can't really demonstrate it, so it's just so that you know. It's very useful. It's your shift key. While you're just selecting, you can add to the selection. Okay. And so yeah, so we are going to speed things up now. I'm going to continue flatting. Like I said, it'll be a combination of using the lasso tool and the fill bucket tool with referencing other layers. And like that, you know, just to win time. And obviously, when doing this, guys, really keep all these things off, okay? This is extremely important because that's what gives you clean flats, like demonstrated right here. Clean flats, okay? All right, let's get straight to it. Alright, so let's slow this down for a second again, and let me show you something that is quite interesting and important, especially when you're coloring. So do you see how when you, so I can show you here actually, do you see how when you have a frame selected, right, it highlights, like for example, if I'm working on the flats, everything around the flats changes color, right? It becomes like this light bluish thing. Now that's very useful when you're inking so that you know like what your borders are and all that stuff. But when you're coloring, it can basically distract you from thinking that the page is actually darker than it is. And then you might end up selecting darker colors as a result. So as I was looking through this, I thought to myself, right, you know, let's take a bit of a distance. If I were to take a distance, right, and just put it like this, you know, the frame looks a bit too dark, like here, right? And that's because while I was working like this, I had this light blue around it, and then it looked fine. Like this is like, okay, it balances out. So in order to avoid that, in order to, so that it doesn't act as a disturbing force, what you can do is you can go to your preferences, right? You go to your layer frame, and here where it says mask, okay, you can, there's an area color, it's in blue in standard, and your opacity of area display, I think you can put it to 0, and there you go. And now, even when you're working within your individual layers, so you won't see in which like even if I were to go, for example, to panel 2, you won't notice it straight away. You'll just know it because you're working in panel 2. But it's interesting to know. And for coloring, I find this actually quite useful because what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go back into some of these colors. And because my flatting was done not too bad, you know, I can quickly select the colors that I really want based on the flatting layers and just recolor them quickly. Then say, for example, now this gray was too dark. I can just quickly go in and modify it. Okay, so let's speed things up again. Okay, so here's an interesting example of how we can use the close gap feature. So I need to color this girl's hair orange, right? Now if I do this, it doesn't work. The reason for this is because there are some gaps somewhere in her hair. So what we can do is here under the tool property in the fill bucket, right, and you have to refer other layers obviously, you can click close the gap and it will basically try to find places where to, yeah, basically close the gap. Now you can keep on selecting like this, and you can also make it smaller so that it has a bit more margin if you need it. But this is just a quick and simple way to get past some of these little issues. If you don't want to use the lasso tool on these things, that's fine. Here you just basically have a tool that can quickly close your gaps. And it's not always 100% perfect, so I would still strongly suggest that you finish it up with the lasso tool. But you get the point. You can still get things done pretty good, pretty well. All right, let's speed things up again. Alright, so now the main part of flatting is done. I know that the colors are all over the place at the moment, but that's normal at this stage because flatting is literally just about getting your colors and your shapes separated from each other. Now it's extremely easy for me to just go in and start playing around with particular sections, because the flatting is done, so I can just move around and say, maybe I should go for a blue cape instead. And I can just quickly change that on the fly and see if that gives better and all that stuff. So let's speed things up again while I try to get the colors right and make it all look a little bit more like one page. I'm liking what I did towards the end of the page, so I might try to get that vibe from the bottom. Alright, so now that the flatting is pretty much concluded, I have the colors in place. It doesn't mean that I'm satisfied with all the colors though. Definitely in panel 3 I'm not happy yet, but to be honest with you, I'm going to, most likely tackle panel 3 a bit later on, because I'm a bit stuck on how to fix this. I do have some ideas, but my first feeling right now is that it's too busy here, which is very distracting from the panels that are there. I want it a whole lot less busy. I want it to focus on the character more, so I might maybe like downgrade the background considerably. Also here, some stuff here, I want to get rid of this stuff here. So yeah, but that I'm going to leave for later. I'm most likely going to focus on that in the next video, which will focus on, adding the finishing touches and stuff like that. So what I'll do now, I'll just remove panel 3 completely out of sight for now. And I'm just going to focus on the second part of coloring, which is the adding all the lighting, the shadows, and for this is where my flats will be very useful, because now I can select individual parts that I will be needing for the lighting or the shading or any of that stuff. So I'm going to kick it off with panel 1, and the way that works is basically I've got my flats layer. I have an overlay layer, but I've removed it for now. I don't really feel like I need it right now. I might turn it on later on again just to see, but for now I just want natural colors. And this is actually colors, or I'm going to call it colors because this is where the actual additional coloring is going to happen. Now, most likely what I'll do like the lighting where the, so you've got the sun, the light comes from here. So I'll play somewhat with the lighting on all these characters. I'm not going to go darker, and the reason for that is that when you print stuff out, right, you've got to keep this in mind, your K values. You can't see it here, but basically it means keep your colors within the top half of your square. Why would you do this? It's because when you print stuff out, it looks muddy if your colors are too dark. Okay, so just food for thought. And yeah, so we're going to start focusing on that. So with my flats in place, all I have to do now is, let me deselect this. Okay, and I'm going to start focusing on the blue suit. I'm going to go to the color section, and for the lighting, I guess I can select, I don't know, take a brush. I'm going to do an airbrush for this. So yes, as you can see, bit by bit, I start adding my colors here and there. You can see it before and after. I still have quite a bit to do. I might also modify a little bit things on the go, but you get an idea. So it's basically a layer on top of your flats. Use your flats to make your selections. You just do that by, just easily selecting your flats. Make sure that refer edited layer only to select. So don't use other layers for that. And then once you've made your selection, you go back to your colors, and then there you can just draw over it. Oops. Make sure to switch it back to a brush, obviously. And then you can just draw over it and see what it gives. If it looks anything like what you were hoping, But the good thing is that it stays within the lines. It stays within within what you were looking for. You don't, your yellows, for example, don't go out of bounds and stuff like that. All right. I'm going to start speeding this up again and continue working on the coloring, lighting, shading, and so forth. And okay, so now we've just finished the lighting and shadowing of these panels, and basically for me this is fine in terms of coloring. So I already said that panel 3 was going to be reviewed. Now if I were to turn it back on, it becomes a disturbing factor again, so I'm definitely going to tackle this in the next video, where it's basically all about adding the finishing touches. And I don't think that that will be so much of a problem. I think this can definitely be fixed. I'm quite happy with the lighting, with the shadows, with all that stuff, with the coloring in general. So yeah, I just say let's move on to the next and see how we can fix this third panel to, make this all look finished and all good. And I'll see you in the next video.